Thanks for tuning in to the Football Talk Squadron. I'm Dutch.
And I'm Pops.
And welcome to Wildcard weekend. We got the games coming up starting on Saturday, ending Monday night. I figure we just attack these one by one, go through them. So I'll start off with you, Pops. First game is Chargers versus the Texans. Chargers are a favorite. What do you think the Texans have to do to win?
I mean, I think CJ has to have a phenomenal game, which we have not seen this year. I was thinking about sending it to you guys. There was a comparison of CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams, and their numbers are strikingly similar. Right at 4,000 yards each. Both of them had 20 touchdowns, I believe. CJ had more interceptions. Like, CJ just hit that sophomore slump, which if anybody wants to go back onto our podcast, that was one of my predictions, was that CJ was going to hit a sophomore slump, and that would be the one thing that would be detrimental to their season. And yes, they still made it to the playoffs, but this is one of those scenarios where it's like, well, they came out of the AFC South where, Titans and Jags, that's almost an easy win each week. And then, they were able to beat the Colts. So in that case, there's 6 games right there that are kind of won by default, and then they got to pick up a couple of the other wins too, which, don't get me wrong, they're still a 10-7 team. I just don't see I don't see CJ having that good of a game against the Chargers defense.
Not to be the Debbie Downer, but Caleb didn't have 4,000 because no Bears quarterback has ever had
3,900.
3,500. 3,500 for the regular season.
My bad.
But hey, in positive news, you're 1-0 against the Packers this year. We can always, it's easy to sort of punch down on Bears, but at the same time, we can always punch up on the Packers. So they no longer, maybe it's a new year. They don't own you in the year 2025. What do you think about how the Chargers are going to attack the Texans? Do you think we're just going to see straight run? What's your envisioning of the Chargers plan?
Dude, my vision, I wish we'd see Herbert throw for 350 yards. Like, that's the one thing. Like, I love watching Herbert, and this year's kind of been weird about what type of style is Jim Harbaugh going to bring into this game, because obviously he's a run first type of guy. We've seen that all year, and we're like, man, is Herbert really going to be this elite passer that Jim Harbaugh is so crazy about? And it's just like, well, Jim, use him, so I still think it's going to be 65% run, maybe 35% pass. I just don't see that changing. But man, I tell you what, the one sleeper that nobody is talking about, I know that he's getting the respect that he deserves, but I think there's more that he deserves, and that's Ladd McConkey, man. Like, I did not see this guy. I saw his greatness at Georgia with Brock Bowers. Like, we saw it. But, like, for it to transition as fast as it did into this league, I mean, the guy is clearly their wide receiver number one when he's not supposed to be. He's just supposed to be that slot, Wes Welker, Cooper Kupp, those types of quick guys that can get underneath and get all the yards. And, man, it's working out well for that team.
His biggest attribute outside of, don't get me wrong, he's a tremendous athlete. But what makes him the number one over Deontay is he catches the football all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's easy to be the number one. If you'll just catch the football in the NFL, like, there's a high chance you're probably going to be the number one guy. I agree with you with a CJ Stroud take, and we've definitely seen the sophomore slump. I know some people may put that off as injuries to the Texans, like they lose Tank Dell and Stephon. But at the same time, the Lions have lost everybody too, and they keep winning. The other side of it is I don't feel like the Texans defense has been at the level that it was last year, this year. And maybe that was we had such low expectations of them last year that they didn't live up to that this year, because I feel like there was this bar set that it was like, oh no, they're going to be really, really good. And
in all fairness, the record's the same. Like I think the allure was that CJ Stroud was this rookie quarterback and was having such a phenomenal year. Kind of like the same thing with Jaden Daniels. I guess we can look a year from now and be like, hey, what did Jaden Daniels do in year 2? Or Bo Nix? Like he got these rookie quarterbacks got their team to the league, or excuse me, to the playoffs. What's going to happen in season 2? And why I think we're seeing it with CJ.
I mean, the other thing with the Texans is I'm picking the Chargers. I'm sure you are as well.
So
It's it's more about the fact that I feel like the Texans sort of, I don't want to say fell into the playoffs, but they almost did because of how bad the rest of that division is. Like
exactly.
you got a guy that taps himself out on a third down. You've got a quarterback dilemma in Jacksonville with Trevor being down and Mac Jones playing somewhat well, and then you have the Titans, which are just abysmal. So I think that's why everybody's picking the Chargers. Is just because I can't put any faith in the Texans right now. They
No.
just haven't earned it with me. Next game up, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. I don't even know what I want to say about other than, do you think that Russell Wilson hasn't one more in him, or do you think this is going to be a bloodbath with the Ravens taking it?
But see, here that's the thing, man. It's like the Ravens always struggle, against the Steelers, and it's just like, why? Like, why is this team? I get it. 2 weeks ago they blew them out. Like, I completely understand that. But like earlier in the season they lost to them. So it's just like, what are we? Yes, they lost. That was the game where Boswell, I think, had all the field goals. Let me go double check, make sure I'm not spewing a bunch of BS. But yeah, the Steelers won 18-16. That's where Boswell had all those field goals. The Ravens struggle against the Steelers, and man, I don't see it happening in this game. The offense of the Steelers has been unable to produce anything, in my opinion. That's sustainable. Russ hasn't been looking well last couple of weeks, and I forgot I saw a meme that summed it up perfectly. But it was, once Mike Tomlin uh, clinches that winning season, and it turned in, I forget who it turned into, but it's like it's just all downhill from there. That it doesn't care anymore. Season's over. He did what he was supposed to do, and they're going to get bounced in the first round, which that's exactly what I see happening again, which I know makes Steelers fans so irate, because they've always had a good defense. Big Ben, obviously, they had the offense, and then we had to deal with the years where Big Ben just wouldn't retire yet, where they struggled. And that's what we see now with Russ. Like, you plugged and played, a aging quarterback just because you got him on a bargain, and he's not producing. And in my opinion, I put in Fields. Like, go tit for tat, Lamar versus Fields. Like, I get that look. I'm not trying to compare the two because we all know Lamar's better. But as far as like an athlete standpoint, I think Justin Fields, I mean, we saw it earlier in the season. Justin Fields was winning games for that team. And, they just put Russ in once he was ready to go off the injury. I think now this is like, hey, Big Mike, you want to win this game, put Fields in.
I think for sure this is where we could see it, just because with both of them being on, it's just a 1 year deal for both. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no like, hey, we're sort of hurting this guy going forward because we put him on a bench during a playoff game. Like, they don't care. At the end of this, if they lose, I would honestly think that Russ is more likely to be gone than Fields, just because they can probably get Fields for a little bit cheaper unless someone's really wanting to sign him. I My big take on this game is, what version of Lamar do we see? Do we
Yep.
see regular season MVP, or do we see playoff Lamar that has, you called it last year. Like last year against the Chiefs, I just remember you blowing up our text, just being like, dude, why will Lamar not run? Like, and it's true. Like, it's one of those ones that, like, you sit back and you look at it and you're like, dude, when he takes off and he's like, no, I'm trying to score. Good luck tackling the dude one on one. But like
Mm-hmm.
in the playoffs, I just get this vibe from him that it's like it's almost like he's hesitant, like he's trying not to turn the ball over, trying to just not, he doesn't want to have something bad happen, and it limits his ability as a runner from that mobility standpoint of the quarterback. But I agree with you. I for sure can see Fields get an opportunity if the Steelers struggle out the gate. But how many yards does King Henry have?
And that's the part too. Yeah, you got a hurt defense because I know Watt's been dealing with an injury.
And
You
Zay
know, so like
Flowers is out too. They ruled him out
yeah,
today.
yeah, Zay Flowers being out, but also that offense, they've finally been able to find a way to get Mark Andrews involved the last little bit of the season. So I still think that they're super balanced. The problem has to be, you know, just like we talked about, is Lamar going to run the ball? And I thought his take was great on Hard Knocks, the end season. They talked about last week before they played the Browns. Like, what do you do? Like, who's the toughest DN that you play? And he's like, Miles Garrett, you know, and he's talking about how Miles will read the read option. And Miles actually faked out Lamar. And so Lamar came up with his own move to counter Miles. And it's just like, if you do that in a game against anybody, you're going to have success, Lamar, and you can't get away from your identity of who you are. Even at Louisville, you were not passing the ball that much to win the Heisman. You were running 70, 80, 90 yards, you know, for touchdowns. Like that's who you are, and you can't get away from that. And I surely hope that Harbaugh has learned that lesson by now, you know, moving forward. And I personally think if the Ravens played their best game, I would. There's a potential that they're in the championship game again, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any problem. The only it's interesting. What's the weakest part of the Ravens defense in your opinion?
Secondary.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the Steelers have one guy who it can be found fighting fans or opponents on the sideline.
And that's the thing. He's been too busy fighting the last couple of weeks. He hasn't gotten anything. So I know he was hurt, but then he was also last week. You know, he had one ball thrown his way. So
Yeah, there was a funny meme that I saw that was like he was at 909 or 899 or 900 yards. He was 900 yards, needed 100 to hit 1,000 yards, and he ended the game with like one catch, -1 yards, and 4 targets. So yeah, he didn't do hot. They get a they'll get another look at it this week, but I don't. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. Give me the Ravens by a bunch. I don't see it happening for the Steelers in this game. Next game up, Broncos Bills. I'm call me crazy. I don't feel like the Broncos are. They have them right now as an
eight
eight
and
and
a
a half
half.
point dog.
Yeah.
I don't see it. What are your
Me,
thoughts on it?
yeah, I was sitting here thinking about exactly what I was going to say when I saw that line. I was just like, you know, the defense of the Broncos is strong enough to give Josh Allen fits to where I don't see this, you know, call it a touchdown. I'd give him a touchdown, but not anything more than that, in my personal opinion. I don't see this being a 10-point game by the Bills because what's going to happen is, I mean, they got a potential to shoot out because we all know that the Bills' defense is questionable at best, and they just use their offense to outscore everybody. You know, they have the old Wild Wild West of, you know, the college football, the Big 12. We're just going to shoot out and let our offense put up more points than our defense gives up. And that's what ends up happening. I think a lot's going to fall into Bo Nix's hands, and we'll really get to see the composure of Bo Nix going into his first playoff game, see if he fumbles the bag or, you know, he steps up to the occasion. I definitely think that this is going to be a closer game than 8.5.
More than Bo Nix arms is his legs in this game.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills have the only game that surprised me with the Bills is how well they shut down the Lions rushing attack. But if I'm the Broncos, that's how you beat the Bills is you have to keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. I don't feel like a shootout is any means of trying to play Buffalo. You want a 17-13 type of game, let your
Mm-hmm.
defense make the stops where they need to. I maybe it's just like a bad energy in my mind of the Bills because I just remember a few years ago when they played Cincinnati in the snow in Buffalo, and everyone's like, dude, Buffalo's going to just mop the floor with Joe Burrow. Their offense stinks. They don't have an offensive line. And Burrow and then went out there and just slaughtered them. It was not a game.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, good news for the Bills. they're not having to face Joe Burrow. They're getting Bo Nix. Bo Nix has played really well. It's one of those games you point to it with the defense of the Broncos. I'm just not sold on 8.5. Do I think the Bills get the win? Yes.
Yes.
Do I think that they sort of sweat it out? Also, yes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me if the Broncos are winning like 10-7 at half. I can just see it. Like, I just think that initially the Broncos defense is going to show up. What will probably win it for the Bills is Josh Allen.
Exactly.
Like, it's just one guy on a mission this year because that's what's willed that team. They have a good chance. I mean, yeah. Anything else to add to the Broncos Bills in your opinion?
No, I think that's exactly spot on. He'll be throwing another hook and ladder to himself.
My buddy, who's a huge Bills fan, was like, "Dude, he's got a young son. He's like, I'm getting this blown up at a huge picture. It's like you won't remember it because you were too young, but you're going to remember it for the rest of your life as you grow up." Next game up, Packers Eagles. I don't feel like I know that this. I'm probably going to get some bias from the Bears fan. Phillies -4.5. You got Jalen Hurts, who's still in concussion protocol.
Yep.
I think that if he doesn't play,
Oh, 100%. Packers win.
yeah, give me the Pack. I'm not trusting Kenny Pickett.
Agreed.
I sit back and I look at it from the Eagles standpoint. I feel like are the Eagles 14-3? Yes. But they're sort of like that Eagles team a few years ago that got into the playoffs and lost to the Bucks.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this game? Like, how do you see it going?
I mean, the worst part, honestly, the biggest issue that they have, in my opinion, is Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts has been out for 3 weeks now. Dude, I do not like this game. I think that's also why we see only 4.5. Just because we don't know what Hurts we're going to see. And yeah, he was limited in practice. They haven't said whether or not he's playing or not. I mean, I think any team's going to do everything that they can to get Jalen Hurts out there on the field because they know exactly what's going to happen if Kenny Pickett gets the nod. I mean, Tanner McKee might even be playing, over Kenny Pickett for all that it matters. The only thing that the Bears did good last season was sabotage the next game for the Packers. Jordan Love is still dealing with that elbow. He's also a limited player or participant in practice. And if could you imagine a playoff game played by two backups? We got Kenny Pickett going off versus Malik Willis. Like, dude, I honestly, I don't know, because in that scenario, you come back to the running backs, and it's just like, well, dude, I'm taking Saquon over Josh Jacobs, in my opinion. So this game is going to be the game that I pay attention to the most, I think, just because we don't know if Jalen's going to play. And then also, once he does decide to play, what Jalen are we going to see? Because we've seen him be absolute trash, and they've lost the game. The good news is that they've got Saquon in the backfield when that happens.
Saquon is probably going to touch the ball, I'd say 30 times.
Yeah, or close.
This game?
Yeah, at least 25.
Yeah. If he doesn't, they lose.
Mm-hmm.
They lose. If at half we're seeing AJ Brown yell at Jalen Hurts, just know the Packers are going to win. Yeah. And it's just one of those ones where when the game gets into this type of pressure, like I've railed against Nick Sirianni for so long now, it feels like beating on a dead horse. They're not Kansas City when it comes to the playoffs. Like Kansas City, that's why I love that big cat of his little board. It just says Chiefs are at the top, and it's like they're going to win three-peat, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's true. Mm-hmm. And it's because when they get into the playoffs, do they switch a gear? I'm with you. I think Matt Nagy calls the plays for the regular season. They switch to Andy Reid. It makes them just different. Like it's something that defenses haven't prepared for. There is a for sure difference in the Chiefs when the playoffs start. The Eagles, however, outside of that Super Bowl run with Jalen, like under Sirianni, like they suck. Yeah. Like they have more than enough problems.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like it was last year. They went 10-1 and then lost 6 straight and then got bounced first round.
Yeah.
So,
The Packers, if Love can stay healthy, yes, they lose Watson, who, don't get me wrong, is a good receiver. His injury, it always hurts. But at the same time, I also feel like this is sort of the benefit of never drafting a first round player, like in terms of a wide receiver for the Packers, is they just have a bunch of guys. It's, hey, we have all these guys. They see the field throughout the year. They are not the home run hitters. They are the consistent, I'll catch the ball 3rd and 7 and make the first down. And that's all the Packers really need to do. The Eagles defense, I feel like, also hasn't been tested outside of the Washington game, of which they lost. Now, granted, Jalen Hurts got hurt that game and was out. But at the same time, that defense couldn't slow down Jaden Daniels.
yeah.
Love's got an extra few years on him in terms of maturity. I like Love's running back in terms of Jacobs more than I do Brian Robson. The Packers have a good chance in this game. Me and you both, as I haven't published it yet on our TikTok of our picks, but everyone picked the Eagles, including Maul. But at the same time, I sat back and I was like, I can definitely see the Packers winning this game. Next game up, Sunday night, got Commanders Bucks. Right now, Tampa Bay's -3. I'll start it off with saying you and Maul pick Tampa Bay. I'm the only guy on the Washington side, but I'll let you defend first. Why is Tampa Bay going to win this game?
I mean, Tampa Bay's got the defense. They already, I get it. Here's the problem with playing somebody so early in the season. You don't truly know the product that you're playing, but they beat the living dog crap out of Jaden Daniels in week 2, I do believe, or it might have been week 1, very first game of Jaden Daniels' career. So they've already played, it was a 3-score game, week 1. And man, I love Baker, and I know he rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but the guy, one, he's been there. Last year, beat the Buccaneers beat the Eagles in the playoffs. Like, this guy, in my opinion, is the sole reason why Buccaneers win this game. Todd Bowles is a defensive-minded coach, and again, the pressure that's going to be on Jaden Daniels as a rookie, I just don't think he gets it done this season. In my opinion, you've got Mike, you've got McMillan, who's been doing good, Shepard, Otten, as well as Bucky Irvin in the backfield. Like, Buccaneers have too many weapons. I can't wait for Mike Evans to match up against Marshawn Lattimore and see how many. I did say in our text message that there's going to be at least 2 15-yarders between the two of them. So we'll see what ends up happening in the game. But yeah, I've got the Buccaneers.
Where I will disagree with you is I don't feel like the Bucks have a good defense. The Bucks have cost themselves in games this year because of how poorly their defense has played. Because Baker has played lights out. Lights out. If it wasn't for some other guys, mainly bigger names than him in terms of Burrow, Lamar, and Josh Allen, having statistically on par with him, if not a little bit better in some categories, I feel like Baker is the MVP just because he's meant more to his team than any other player outside of Joe Burrow, which in those other guys, it's just any of those guys disappear off their team, it's difficult. I just think for the Buccaneers defense, and don't get me wrong, Washington is flip a coin on their defense as well. I think this is an absolute shootout. And in that scenario, I just think that the Commanders are not under this pressure to win. Like, it's great. Like, you did something that no one thought. Like, you made the playoffs with a rookie QB. You're doing fantastic. They have a huge win last week. Like, they're just sort of rolling into the playoffs. Don't get me wrong, Tampa had a good win, but at the same time, like, think about it. Tampa struggled with their starters against Spencer Rattler and the Saints. Like, I get that they won, but at the same time, I'm like, there is some stuff on paper that I sit back and I go, you know what? give me the rookie to just come out and just sling it. No fear.
For sure.
Like, why not? Just go all out. Now,
The
go ahead.
the other big question is if Dan Quinn's going to be able to break his Cowboys record or of being 12-5 and getting bounced in the first one. Can he break the curse, of the last couple of seasons with the Cowboys, then being 12-5, getting bounced out first round?
Don't get me wrong, Dan. Yes, the Packers absolutely obliterated the Cowboys last year. The same could easily happen this week against the Commanders. Dan's also been to a Super Bowl. Like he's played Aaron Rodgers before in Green Bay when Green Bay was seen as this like juggernaut. In Atlanta, I remember it was over in the first half. I mean, Falcon, which that offense was incredible. That was Matt Ryan's MVP season with Julio,
with Shanahan calling it,
and Mohamed Sanu. Like those guys were ridiculous. Dan, I feel, is on par, if not better, than Todd Bowles with defense. Dan's shown that he can get a defense right. So if there's someone that I think can come out and challenge Baker, it's them. I see a shootout this game, but that's why I got the Commanders. I know you guys got the Bucks. I really do think it's a coin flip going down. Last game, Vikings Rams. You got the fires in LA right now. They're talking that if it does infringe and possibly affect the game, they'll move it to Arizona and play it down at the Cardinal Stadium. Right now, the Vikings are the favorite at -1. And you and Maul picked the Rams. Picked the Vikings. I debated this. I'm going with the Rams. I don't like how Sam Darnold played.
Look last week.
Yeah. It was just one of those ones that you just sort of set back and don't get me. I thought the Vikings could have won that game.
Look at it. How many red zone opportunities they had and walked away with nothing.
And he was forcing the ball to JJ. There was multiple plays in the red zone on fourth down that Jordan Addison is wide open. If he throws it to him, it's 6. And you just sort of think about when they went for it, that if you change a score here or there, it's the Vikings game. They're right in it. The score looked ugly last week because it got away from them there at the end, but the Vikings were right in that game the entire time. I just sit back and I look at the Rams. The Rams are this. No one wants to play the Rams. I wouldn't. It's Matt Stafford. It's Cooper Kupp. It's Puka Nacua. Kyron Williams. They have a good defense in verse. It's a young team, surprisingly, and you have Sean McVay. And you're at home. I don't know how the Vikings fans are going to travel, especially with the fires and everything. Who knows how that's going to affect the home crowd. I just, based upon what I've seen this season, I'll take the experience of Matt Stafford over Sam Darnold, who, although has looked amazing this year, definitely saw some ghosts last week with Detroit. What do you think? Why do you think the Vikings come out victorious against the Rams?
I don't disagree with your take. I was in the same boat of, again, are we going to see Matt Stafford do what Matt Stafford does just purely based on 20 years of experience? And I mean, I can 100% flip the coin. The main reason I know it didn't show up last week, but I think Minnesota's defense has shown that they are a playoff level caliber defense all season long. And if they're able to get to Matthew Stafford, he's not able to move around like he used to. And I would like to say it's not Stafford, in my opinion, or excuse me, not Darnold, in my opinion, but it's the play calling of KOC. He's been able to turn that team, essentially, like you use the word juggernaut, but nobody's given Minnesota the credit over the last couple of seasons. Kirk's second to last year, not last year when he popped the Achilles, the year before that, they started out the season 10-1. They were on fire. Kirk was putting up MVP level numbers. And then the year after that, same thing was happening. They just were losing those one possession games. And so they had a little bit more losses, but Kirk was still putting up huge numbers with the same weapons that Darnold's now using this season. And in my opinion, I think last week was definitely a fluke. I probably wouldn't pick the Vikings to go much further. I don't know if they would win the next round. Uh, but I just don't think that the Rams are going to be able to overcome it this game. I could be wrong.
The thing that I was swaying me towards the Rams is how the Lions attack them and move the ball against the Flores defense. That's really, like you sort of pointed out, has been super tough. If there's a guy that can find those tendencies, it's McVay. Like, you just got tested and exposed in some areas. McVay is going to come out and attack the exact same thing the Lions did.
Did you see the reel of Ben Johnson and Flores playing chess last week? So there was they did one play in specific, but essentially Flores moved up like he was showing all out, and so then the Lions moved, and then Flores backed off, and then like it was pretty neat to watch. I'll have to find it and send it to you guys, but yeah, man, they were just playing chess between the two coordinators, and it was pretty neat to see.
Ben Johnson, I know you love him because you hope he's the next coach of the Bears.
100%.
We'll see what happens with him just going forward. My question for you is now that wraps up the final game, is initial thoughts on the playoffs. What do you think we see in terms of conference championships and a possible Super Bowl and Super Bowl winner? Just from what we know, we'll do it each week, so you're not locked into this, but we'll update it as we go. But based upon so far, what are you seeing in terms of conference championships and Super Bowl?
Yeah, right now, if you go into my head, give me the Lions because David Montgomery's coming back. You know, I'm sorry, but going to Ford Field right now is not the time you want to be doing that. You know, the winter weather is in full effect up there. Nobody wants to travel up into that, so people traveling don't want to go up there. So that only adds more value, you know, to the Detroit natives, you know, the loyal fans that have just been begging for this moment ever since they had Barry. You know, they've just been begging to be in this position. Dude, it's going to be nuts in Detroit. You know, if they go down early, like next round, I just don't see it. So I'll take Detroit on the NFC side. AFC side, I think we're going to see Josh Allen pull through. In my personal opinion, everybody's on the Chiefs' back, but we've talked about it. It is so extremely hard to be the to three-peat. Like, it's so tough to stay on top of that mountain, as we saw with, you know, the Patriots. We may never see, and that was over a 20-year span. Like that's the thing that, you know, we got to look into perspective, was that, yeah, they won 6 Super Bowls, but it took 20 seasons to do it. You know, whereas here we've had 3 Super Bowls over 4 years, and now they're trying to three-peat. Like, dude, I don't see it this season, and the main reason why is Mahomes hasn't had a stellar season. You know, you said it perfectly with that meme you sent out yesterday, or comparison picture of Rodgers and Mahomes. Same numbers. Aaron Rodgers sucks, needs to retire. Mahomes, greatest of all time. You know, like, Mahomes is not playing that great this year. There's a reason he's not even in the Pro Bowl this year, is because he's just not playing to the level that we've seen him play to. And that, I think, is going to be the delineating factor that's going to allow for the Bills to get into a shootout with the Chiefs, and Josh Allen's able to do it this season.
The thing that has kept the Chiefs around the past 2 seasons, one thing: Spag. That defense has just confused dudes. Can't get around it. Guys are unable to put up points against the Chiefs, and it's paid off for them. I sit back and I look at, I would love, you know, Josh Allen to make it, win one for Buffalo, especially like if it was either against Detroit or against Minnie, you know, some teams that have never won it before. Like, that would be, You couldn't script it better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the AFC, though, I can't. I'm not going to do it. I learned my lesson last year. I'm not doing it again this year. You can give me the Chiefs to advance to the Super Bowl out of the AFC. I think the biggest threat to the Bills is not the Chiefs. I think it's that if it plays out like we all think, which is, the Chargers winning, but then the Bills and the Ravens winning, Bills will play the Ravens, and I think that's the
Yeah.
bigger threat. Is
Mm-hmm.
Derrick Henry that offense? I think that's going to be tougher to stop for Buffalo just from a running game standpoint. And then the Chiefs get a Chargers team who I sort of said this at the beginning of the season. I won't be bold enough to pick them, but this is what I was talking about. Like I don't think that the Chargers lose 3 straight against the
Yeah.
Chiefs. Like Harbaugh will come out and do everything possible to try to beat them.
Well, dude, I picked him to win in the season. The last time that they played, I said, "Give me the Chargers," and it came down to a field goal. Like that third down conversion that Mahomes was able to get, and they were able to kick the field goal to win the game. Like they had the game right there, and they just weren't able to capitalize.
And the Chargers know that.
Exactly.
It'll be interesting, but for Buffalo, that'd be a huge test playing Baltimore. Good news is they get them in Buffalo. That
Mm-hmm.
don't have to go to Baltimore. That helps. That Buffalo crowd's crazy. I was there this year, loved every minute out of it. The other side, the NFC, I think this is where it gets super complicated. In my opinion, the Eagles get bounced before the NFC Championship. I know a lot of people think it's going to be Lions, Eagles. I don't see it working out that way. I think that this is where we have upsets in the NFC just because no one's like that real favorite. I'm with you though
You
that
think Commanders get through? Well, they'd play Lions next, though, wouldn't
well, it
they?
depends. If the Packers win, if the
Yeah.
Packers can beat the Eagles, the Packers would play the Lions no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd have the winner of the Rams, versus the Bucks or Commanders. That's just what I'm seeing right now in terms of my bracket. If the Lions, the only way to stop a Chiefs three-peat is for the Lions to get to the Super Bowl. And it's because, there's one other piece of this. You said this earlier in text message weeks ago, but I'll give you all the credit so it's not plagiarism. If they go to the Super Bowl and Aiden Hutchinson comes running out of the tunnel,
Oh, dude.
give me the Lions by a million. like, dude, that city would be. Lions fans will auction off everything they have to go to that game.
Yeah.
Like, and the great news is they've beat them before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there's a belief in the Lions this year. I think and that's sort of I get that real sense from the Lions that no matter the injuries, they have one goal. They're like, we're winning. Because I think they know that Ben Johnson and Glover, they're gone.
Yeah, they're about to be gone. Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's like, I think that's been the message inside. It's like, hey, we get a small window. We are at the edge or at the end of our window. If we're going to do it, it's this year. Leave everything out there. I like the Lions to go. And this is where I'll pick the Lions to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, if the Lions can make it, the Lions win.
I agree. And that's the thing. Watching. I was looking at the other night. The progression that Dan Campbell has made since he came in. He had a losing record year one. Second year was 9-5, 9-6, I think. Whatever. And then 12-5, I believe last year, and then this year he's only got one loss on the season. Just 2 losses. Sorry, 2 losses on the season. Like, just absolutely unreal the ability that he was able to turn the team around. And just like you mentioned, I think we're going to see in the offseason once Glenn, I don't know necessarily if Glenn's going to leave. I haven't heard his name swirled around as much as Ben Johnson, but it'd be the replacement. This will be the determining factor of Dan Campbell's career of is he able to plug in somebody that's going to be able to sustain what they've already built, the grit. And we've seen it through the players, we've seen it through the guys that they've been able to put on that roster. But do we see it out of the coaches to be able to have that sustained, dynasty in a sense?
I think we do, and it's mainly because the guy that's behind the whole thing is Campbell. Like, Campbell's a player's coach. I don't think that Campbell's ever going back being like, here's how to draw up an offensive play. The other
Yeah.
good thing is unlike years previous where it's like, who wanted to go to Detroit? Like, yeah, cool. I got my first opportunity as an offensive coordinator, but it's to Detroit. It's like, I guess I'll take it and see if I can be a savior. But they have the pieces. Like, you have your quarterback in Golf. They have a very good wide receiver core. The defense overall is pretty young. They've been exceptional with draft picks here lately. It's really about, can you just depend? It's sort of like the Niners. Like the Niners reached that peak twice against the Chiefs, and when they got beat last year, it was like you could just. That's why I didn't have them pick not to go to the playoffs. I just thought the Rams would win the division. I got that one right, but
For sure.
dude, they died.
Yeah, they
Like
did.
they're in Vegas. You might as well just bury a 49ers jersey underneath it because they died on that field. That team's over. They won't. That they're about to be put into a blender with the cap problems and everything else.
And the fact that we don't even know what's about to happen with Purdy in the offseason, needing to be paid as well as Debo and Kittle.
Well, I don't know if you saw the stat transition a little bit to them. So the Niners right now are projected next year $15 million over the cap. For every million that they pay Purdy, that will add $1 million on top of that. So right now they're saying possibly a $45 million deal, so they'd be $60 million over the cap. Like I saw they cut Hasgrove. They mum on Debo. I think Debo's gone. I think Kittle's gone. I really think that possibly getting rid of McCaffrey at this point, just because he's hurt, of trading him somewhere. They're going to have to clean house and start anew. That's just if you're going to pay Purdy. And I don't think they have any other option but to pay Purdy.
For sure.
I don't see them risking going into the draft, especially in like this year of quarterbacks. Like
there's nothing there.
Who you going to take? Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, no disrespect to, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, those guys, but like there's nothing that I see out of them that's, Cam Ward's already been in the college realm for 6 years. Like you're drafting a Michael Penix, and Shedeur, not to take away from his ability, he also brings a lot of baggage with him, just because of his dad. It's no fault of his own. It's just his dad, and that all that comes with him. Is like, do we want this for our franchise?
Well, you pointed out with Caleb Williams. What was your big gripe with Caleb Williams?
His record against top 25.
Dude, Colorado has not beaten a ranked opponent.
Yeah.
Period. Like, not just like it was close. Got the break speed off of them. Like, Colorado is the most overhyped team for the past 2 years. We called it 2 years ago. Were they competitive in the Big 12 up until when it mattered against a good team? They beat the teams that they needed to, that they should have, but the teams that it was a competitive matchup, and then BYU just came out there and throttled them. It was over.
For sure.
The quarterback two quarterbacks, Cade McCown, or Kyle McCord, excuse me. Kyle McCord with Syracuse, I think looked really, really good. And the other guy that can sling it, it's Jackson Dart with Ole Miss. Those are two guys I think they come out in probably like the 4th or 5th round. Wouldn't be surprised. Like, those guys show up, ball out, they go to a good team. That's all it takes. Is it before we even started recording, I guess we'll bring it up now, is you sent us the text that blew our minds, is that Carson Beck is entering the transfer portal, which I think you put it perfectly. It was, my man got an evaluation that was like, you ain't going first round.
Yeah.
You can forget that. People want to know. And so he's going to have to transfer to possibly get a first round grade, which, just looking out over the next few seasons, like I sit back and, I mean, they're saying that Jalen Milroe may be a first round. And if we're at that level where Jalen Milroe is a first round quarterback,
we need to be scouts.
Yeah. Dude, don't get me wrong, tremendous athlete if he was running the football. But my man's not a quarterback. I'll go on record too. Neither's Carson Beck. Like, my man not an NFL quarterback. Like, he couldn't even get away with it in college of looking off a guy. Like, dude, the pros, like,
Well, and look at what everybody talks about with Tua. Yes, he's one of the most accurate passers, but if that first read's gone, yeah, where's he going?
well, he'll even hit Tyreek in the hands, but my man can't catch.
Well, so they came out today. He's been having a wrist issue. Drew Rosenhaus put that on McAfee show this morning. He was dealing with a wrist issue all season, so that's why some of those drops happen.
Was it from the handcuffs week 1?
Well, either that or grabbing all his baby mamas.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the playoffs. It's nice, but the off season's going to be just as awesome just because there's going to be a lot of moving pieces. Because
absolutely,
if the Chiefs win, if the Chiefs three-peat, Kelsey, Reed, gone.
Yeah.
Kelsey will retire. Yeah. Reed will.
Yeah, Kelsey's going to be a Swiftie, touring the world.
Wow, that's what I do. Dude, if you win 3 straight, like, there's nothing else to prove, especially from his standpoint.
And you got 4 to your name. You've got almost all the time. I would maybe come back for one more season to get all the tight end records, but, to take over Tony Gonzalez. But then it's a matter of, like, just you shaking your head, like, why put your body through that?
Yeah. Like, because you leave on the ultimate high, 3 straight. Because it's like the 72 Dolphins. The likelihood that in the future someone wins 3 straight, it's never been done before. It's incredible. And we've had teams go to 4 straight Super Bowls and not win 1. Like, the idea that you went to 3 straight and won them all, dude, incredible. So, well, that was a little bit of a tangent there at the end, but
it's always good though.
Yeah, Wildcard weekend summed up. We'll get back with the divisional round. You got anything else for you? Tie a bow on it?
No, man.
Well, time pull chalks. We'll see you guys before the divisional round after Wildcard weekend.